Hi. So the first thing I want to say is that I feel like such a 90s chick in this, and I kind of love it. I bought this today in a necklace set, but I actually thought this was a headband until I took it off the thing. And it has a cute little elephant, but I kind of love the choker. I don't own anything like this, and I think it's really cute actually. And I love how it matches the black and gold headband. But enough about my outfit, but I would love to hear if you think this looks cute. Um, so I wanted to talk today about personal growth. And I know I've talked a little bit before about my recent breakup. And so basically, kind of the rest of the story to that is that when my ex boyfriend and I were breaking up, he really, really wanted to be friends. And I was hesitant and not sure it was a great idea because I've been in those situations before and I'm not very good at being able to change my feelings about somebody really quickly. So I was very hesitant. But I agreed to try because I didn't hate him and I kind of still wanted him to be in my life in some way. So I wanted to make that work. And then we were supposed to hang out yesterday, and yesterday was about almost a week. We broke up a week ago today, so like 6 days, and our relationship was only like 8 days long. So I mean, it was a long time considering, I guess. Um, and we were texting about hanging out, but our plans kind of changed. But then he kind of just went off the grid, and then ended up saying he was at work. But it was weird because hours before he had told me he was headed home, and so I was confused as to how he was heading home if he's been at work for all that time. Because he'd said he'd been at work since like noon, and this was like 5 o'clock. So it was just very confusing, and I don't know, he just kind of fell off the grid again, and you know, it was just kind of like one of those situations where I felt like he really wasn't respecting my time. And we had kind of gone over this before, and I had seen also with his friends how he had kind of acted the same way and like a kind of disregard for a commitment if it's a friend, because like something he said is like, I can see my friends anytime. But I don't really agree with that, and that's not how I operate. If I make a plan with somebody in a commitment, I want to stick to it. You know what I mean? I look at my friendships and like those commitments the same way as I do work or whatever. You should honor your commitments and the plans that you make, and it's just like a respect thing. And so I was unhappy, and I was like, even this whole thing, I was thinking yesterday I was going to actually talk to him about what we were going to do because I did not think we could be friends. I was like, I don't think I can think of him as anything but a romantic partner for me. So today on text, I was like, I'm like never going to have another opportunity to do this, and I'm not going to go through this whole cycle again just so that I can have a face-to-face conversation with him. This is not worth my time and effort. So I decided to text him and kind of just tell him that I needed to wash my hands of everything and this just needed to be over because I kind of see how it's going and I want and deserve better than that for myself. And I just don't think it's going to work. And it was a really good but terrible feeling at the same time because I have such a hard time like standing up for myself and then also um, ending toxic, even slightly toxic interactions. I'm usually the person who's always hanging on and trying to find hope or waiting for the other person to end things. I'm that person, even in friendships and all kinds of other things. So it was hard for me to be the one to say this isn't working and I need things to change because even when we broke up it was hard for me to do that and I felt like I was kind of doing it again, except that this time I was ending the friendship, right? Or friendship that had no time to really happen, but ending the intention of it. So it was really, really, really hard, and I was like, oh, why am I doing this? Should I do it? Should I go through with this? um there was a lot of doubt and anxiety and panic that I felt doing it and afterward. But then after a couple hours went by, I realized I actually felt good and I felt like I handled this well. I made a good decision for myself and I did it in a way that was respectful of both of us. I didn't do it in a way that's like lashing out, like, oh, like, fuck you, you terrible person. Like, I didn't do that. And it's hard because a lot of times you want to do that and just lash out so that the other person, I guess, kind of loses respect for you. And then by that, you end up ending the relationship. But that's not really a healthy way to do things. So I did it in a way that was respectful to me and to him. Um, and that made sense for me and that I think was appropriate to the situation. Like I just felt like this is not somebody I even owe a face-to-face conversation because they haven't really given me that respect. So I'm not going to give it back. I'm going to do things in the same way. I'm not going to like go out of my way to be as nice as I can, if that makes sense, but I'm still going to be respectful of how things are. So it was so different from like how I handle things. But I recognize that the only way that you can change and grow is to handle things differently than you did before, or else you just do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, and the cycle never stops. And it's hard. It's hard to get off that train and to change things. But I'm really proud of myself, like, because when I look at like how this whole thing went versus how some of my other relationships have gone, this was so much better. And like now I feel like I can walk away from it and not feel like I have any kind of remorse or like any kind of regrets or even like pain. I feel like we had closure and it's I can move on. I don't have anything like lying in the background that needs to be addressed, or something that I'm shoving under the rug. And I put everything out there. And so I guess like my whole message with this is that sometimes like personal growth looks different than you think it's going to. Because, like, I always thought, like, growth would mean, like, my relationships are going to be, like, so much better and so much different. And that's how I'm going to know I changed because the partners I attract are different, right? And I don't think that's necessarily untrue, but it's not always going to look like that. It's not always going to look like the picture you think in your head it's going to look like. Sometimes it will completely take you by surprise. And this situation kind of did take me by surprise because essentially how I learned was like I attracted someone who was better than previous people in the sense that he wasn't abusive and it was a healthy relationship in terms of like the basics, right? But it definitely wasn't a situation that was fulfilling for me. And it still repeated some of the same patterns of like emotional unavailability on the other person's end, me kind of doing the emotional labor of the relationship and things like that. And I saw that and I was like, wait, this pattern is repeating itself. And I caught it very early. I caught it a week in, like that's nothing. And was able to say, like, I don't want to repeat this and I need to stop. And that was the whole lesson in this whole relationship was like, okay, this is what you've been doing. So is this what you still want to do? You have an opportunity to change the cycle here. So are you going to take it or are you going to do what you've always done? Right? That was the lesson. And that was the lesson even showing me like, is this what you want for your life and for yourself? Because this is what you're doing. This is the result. And so I was able to say, no, this is not what I want. And affirm myself, but then also advocate for myself and say like, you know what, this is not what I deserve, and that can be hard. That can be hard to say like, you know what, I actually deserve better than what you're giving me. It's hard to say like, I deserve to have these things because sometimes you feel like you don't, and that this is just how things played out and this must be it for you. So saying no and then undoing the cycle, you're changing who you're going to attract just by doing that. And that's what I realized. And that's what I realized the personal growth didn't look like what I thought it was going to look like, but it still happened, you know? And so don't put so many boundaries and like expectations around like this is what it's going to look like when I grow and I change, and here are the ways I'm going to do that, because it's not always going to look like that. And sometimes when you have too much of a picture in your mind, you miss the opportunity when it actually comes to you. You just have to trust that what you're doing in like the cycle breaking essentially is going to bring about that for you. And you have to just trust in that and then go with it. But then, use what you've learned and then break the cycle and do things differently. And it's hard. Like I said, it was so hard. um, it's still hard. Like, it still sucks. And, you still are going to feel things. It's not like you don't like turn into a robot. But yeah. So that's what I wanted to say. I know this ended up being kind of long, and I'm kind of also in love with this choker by the end of this video. So that is the message. Personal growth is not always going to come in the package that you think it will.